Breakfast with Spaniels with Dr. Judy Morgan. Remember, you can purchase all of Dr. Morgan's products at her website at www.drjudymorgan.com. Now it's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Good morning. So, a couple technical difficulties this morning, including my microphone doesn't want to sit where it belongs. Well, close enough. Okay. Good morning. I have not had a sip of coffee yet, so give me 1 second. Okay, apparently I only half-loaded Hugh's coffee to cook. Well, he'll get some in a minute. Off to a slow start this morning. We've been a little exhausted with travels and everything else, so this morning I wanted to talk about a really cute dog that I saw yesterday for the first visit. And I kind of didn't know what would be the best title to put on this, but we're going to talk about kidney Jing deficiencies. But, you know, if I put that up as a title, people who haven't followed me for a long time will be like, what? Yeah, I'm not going to watch that. What is that about? You know, and then I wanted to, you know, I thought, well, I could title it, you know, Not Enough Tools in the Toolbox, because we're going to talk about that, but, you know, that might not get people to watch. But if you talk about the dog who got off to a bad start, well, you know, people might, you know, it's about a dog, though, you know, more likely to watch. So, you know, the things we go through in the morning. So, for those of you who have the book, the Yin and Yang, we're going to talk about page 71, Jing tonics. Everybody can read along. So what is Jing? Jing is your life essence. It's what you're born with, and it's controlled by the kidneys. The old Chinese proverb says that we are born with 100 years of life. That those 100 years of life are controlled by our kidneys. And so we are born with 100 years of life essence stored in our kidneys. If we eat well, we exercise, we, you know, don't overindulge in the wrong food, the, you know, alcohol, the drugs, if we, you know, don't have too much stress, you know, all those things that go into making up a life. If you keep them balanced, you will get your 100 years. And, you know, if you're one of those really chillax people, you might get more than 100 years. My mother's best friend from high school, her mom is 104. I think she turned either 104 or 105 right before Christmas. So that's amazing. You know, that's somebody who, and I've met her. Her mind is still just as sharp, and she knits a lot and has her little dog sits in her lap, and she's a happy person. So, but, you know, there are things that can shorten that lifespan. So for our dogs, I don't think anyone really knows what the potential lifespan really is. We certainly see dogs that will live to be in their mid-20s. There have been reports of dogs that live to be in their late 20s. Kitty cats, for sure, we're getting them way into their 20s more and more often. Hi, Star. Here comes our 17-year-old. So, why are you wet? Oh, stop. So, so we are born with a certain amount of life essence. However, there are individuals who are born without enough life essence, and that is a Jing deficiency. So, why would we be born without enough life essence, and how would we know that we didn't have enough life essence? So, the dog that I saw yesterday was only in the second litter, and I don't know how old the mom was. I didn't ask that, but it was only the second litter, so that's a good thing. Now, were the litters back to back? I don't know. Was it a very young mother? I don't know. Or a very old mother. I'm thinking young since it was the second litter. But there were 12 in the litter. It's Labrador, so, for labs, you can get pretty good sized litters, but 12's a lot. And this dog was not the runt, but the runt didn't make it. So that one had enough of a Jing deficiency that couldn't even get, out of puppyhood. So, that's a significant Jing deficiency. So we see that, with children who were born without body part, or animals who were born without body parts, the anencephaly. That's part of, a lot of the dogs with the domed head that are born with significant hydrocephalus and not as much brain matter. That's a Jing deficiency. The kidney is responsible for the marrow of the body. The marrow includes the bone marrow, which we all think about, but marrow is also all of the nervous system, so the brain, the spinal cord, the nerves. So the cavaliers that are born with syringomyelia, that's a kidney Jing deficiency. So when people ask me, will it shorten their lifespan? Well, yes and no. I mean, that's a Jing deficiency. So is that going to make them not live to be a 20-year-old dog? Probably contributing for sure. Animals that are born with heart defects, any kind of defect. So very commonly we will see a puppy or a kitten come in, and I always look for the defects in threes. So if I hear a heart murmur, I'm also going to look for a hernia. So they might have an umbilical or an inguinal hernia. And I'm also going to look for something like luxated patellas or a cleft palate or an underbite, something else that is just not right. One of our kitty cats has the biggest overbite in the world. I can stick my whole thumb between her top teeth and her bottom with her mouth shut. So that's a little eggplant. She doesn't show up very often. So that's what the Jing is. So this puppy, he was part of a very large litter. And he wasn't the runt, but the owner said when they went to pick out the puppy, he was the quiet one. He just sat there kind of watching, and all the other puppies were doing normal puppy stuff. They were, racing and wrestling and chewing on each other and rah, 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 normal puppies. And he was just, hi. And so she chose him because she wanted the nice, quiet little puppy. And that's great. But she picked out the one little guy who didn't have as much energy, didn't have as much life essence. And he also left the litter way too early. He went home at 6 weeks. He also got his first vaccine at 6 weeks. So if you want to take somebody with a Jing deficiency and just pound them a little more and say, here, let's give you a little more trouble in your life, vaccinate early. And so I really prefer not to do vaccinations until 12 weeks if we can keep them protected until that point. Sorry, I need coffee. Oh, so good. So this little guy was born with a Jing deficiency, so he didn't have enough of the good stuff, and that kind of sets him up for some trouble. And then when we add to that and compound the problem by weaning early and vaccinating early, and then as soon as they got him home, within a day, he started with blowout diarrhea. And when he was examined at the veterinarian, they checked a stool sample. He was full of coccidia. Then so he was on a bunch of medications for that. They get the coccidia cleared up. Then he's got a bunch of hookworms. And that will happen very commonly. So if you have a pet that as a puppy or kitten has a whole bunch of parasites and you treat for those parasites, very commonly after you treat and you check a stool sample, a different parasite shows up. And that's because the first one was there in such abundance that it was suppressing the other one. When you get rid of the first one, then the second one will show up, and now all of a sudden you have a bigger, better, different problem. So this poor little guy because he had so much diarrhea and because he had so many parasites during the first couple of months at home, he was on chronic dewormers, chronic metronidazole. I think he had Albon, Nemex, Panacur, metronidazole. I mean, it was just like one after another, after another, after another. And then we get we think he might have a urinary tract infection. Well, when I looked at the records, no, I don't think he has a urinary tract infection, but he got antibiotics a couple of times for it. Never had a culture done, and they were basing it on the fact that his urine is not concentrated at all. And I am very suspicious that this poor little guy actually has a congenital kidney problem, that he is not able to concentrate his urine. So I think we have bigger fish to fry here than what we thought. And so then, of course, because it's a traditional veterinarian, he got, the monthly vaccines, and every vaccine was the DHLPP. So we're getting like 9 in 1. Then he also got corona. He also got Lyme. He also got rabies. So the poor little guy, I mean, he's just been overloaded with chemicals and vaccines. And the owner is following the veterinarian, the professional's advice. And, after a while, the owner started to scratch her head and she started to question, thankfully. And she said, I don't understand. We keep doing the same thing over and over, and he's not getting better. And she had been changing the food around a little bit, trying to find something that she thought might work. And on her own, she kind of figured out, I think chicken might be a problem. And the interesting thing was that she thought chicken was a problem for the dog, which generally it is. For these dogs that are having these problems, very commonly they don't tolerate chicken, and it's because Beneful. That's what he got fed as a puppy. So because of the poor quality ingredients, they become sensitized, and because of the over-vaccination and the fact that vaccines are grown on egg cultures, very commonly these pets have chicken intolerance. So the poor little guy and the owner is starting to get frustrated because she said, I'm here every week and we just keep doing more of the same. Don't you have anything else? And the problem is the veterinarian was doing what the veterinarian knew how to do, and he didn't have anything else in his toolbox. I mean, he's not a bad guy. He's just doing what he knows and doesn't have any tools in his toolbox other than what he keeps using, and what he keeps using is not working. So, luckily the owner said, I got to take a different track on this. And so she went to one of the local feed stores that's really good, and she was talking to them about, what could I do differently with my dog? And they recommended raw feeding. So she got a raw beef product, which is going great for this dog. So the stools almost instantly got themselves turned around just by switching to a raw diet that he could actually process and not having any chicken products in there. But luckily, the pet store owners, we've known each other for 30 years, and he recommended that she come see me. So she came in, and then we talked about how we're going to detox this guy, so he's off all of his chemicals. Luckily, this owner's great. I mean, she was leaning more toward the I want to do this without all the chemicals side. And so she hasn't used flea and tick preventative on him. She had already stopped her heartworm preventative, I think, in November. And, she just knew there had to be a better way to do this. So now the little guy, he's going in the right direction because he's on a food that actually agrees with him now. We're adding some things. We're adding some enzymes and probiotics by using the fermented raw goat milk. So we're going to try to do things as naturally as possible without a ton of supplementation. And, he's off any chemicals. We talked about what she can do in the spring and in the summer for fleas and ticks and more natural ways to do things. And we talked about things that we could add to his diet. So he's on a good base diet, but we're going to add some of those things that are very, very good for Jing deficiency. So Jing is the essence of life. So we want to use foods that are also the beginning of life. So eggs are phenomenal. Now, it's a big question mark right now because this guy is sensitive to chicken as to whether or not he'll be able to tolerate eggs. Generally speaking, even if they have a chicken allergy, they will be able to tolerate the eggs. It's kind of an interesting thing. And if they can't tolerate chicken eggs, they might tolerate duck eggs or turkey eggs. And, sometimes we just have to get a little creative with that. If they won't tolerate the eggs, then we can use things like small fish because those are also the beginning of life. So we use sardines very commonly. We use nuts and seeds. So I'm a big fan of sesame seeds, particularly the black sesame seeds. So we use those kinds of things. And then we talked about, there's a diet in here. So we talked about using bone broth. And so far, this guy also has bone diseases. So the kidneys rule the marrow and the bone. And so he already was diagnosed with panosteitis, which is an inflammatory disease of the long bones in rapidly growing large breed dogs. So he's already been diagnosed with that. He already had a shoulder problem. So could that be an OCD, another developmental disorder? Don't really know. Right now he's not lame, so we're happy with that. The other thing that she reported is that when he plays with other dogs or when he's excited, he's got about a 10-minute energy burst, and then he's done. Now, normal Labrador puppies, I think he's like 8 months old, they're normally a bundle of energy that just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. People complain that they can't wear them out. This little guy, 10 minutes, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go nap over here. You guys keep playing over there. And that's just because he's got that Jing deficiency and he just doesn't have that energy reserve. He's just like, yeah, this is what I got. So we're hoping, and so then I gave her the kidney Jing recipe. So I don't know which way to go with that. I told her she could make that, and then I picked out some other recipes in here for him. Now, the interesting thing is that normally a puppy, particularly a Labrador puppy who's full of energy and they're early in life, they will usually be a hot dog. Because youngsters have all that energy. They're very young. They're zipping around like crazy. But pets with a Jing deficiency will have a pale tongue and they will be cold and they don't have as much energy in their body. So the interesting thing with this guy, he should have been young, but because he had a Jing deficiency, he ended up neutral. So it kind of put him in the middle. But that's not normal for a puppy. For puppies, I want to see that darker tongue. I want to see them, full of energy.
Is there something that the breeder could have fed the
Oh, talk about the breeder. Okay, yeah, and I don't have all the info, so yeah, we can talk about that. So this little guy ended up pretty neutral. So we picked some other recipes out of the book, and I basically told her, substitute in beef or pork for this guy. We want to keep his meats fairly rich, and we're not going to use the poultry so much. And dark oily fish would also be good for this guy. So the question is, could they have done something differently with the mother? So I don't have all the details. So that makes it a little difficult. Like I said, you don't want to breed them too young. So I don't want to have the mother bred until she's at least 2 years old. So we would have gone through a couple of heats. If you can wait till they're 2.5, 3, that's even better. We want to make sure that the mother is completely developed, that, she's got all of her ducks in a row and that, she is good and healthy. And we want to not have the mom on a bunch of chemicals because all of that is going to decrease reproduction. We want to have her on a really high quality diet. So what would we feed somebody who's pregnancy and they're making new life? Let's feed some new life. Let's get the eggs in there. Let's get the sprouts in there. Let's get those seeds. The same things that we would feed for a Jing deficiency. We're making new life. We're making new marrow. We're making new little brains. So let's support that system. Feeding kidney, because we're like supports like. Feeding bone broth. Those are the kinds of things I would like to see in the mama's diet so that we are supporting what she's making. And then, can we control whether she has 9 in the litter or 12 in the litter? No, not really. But this is one of those where it would have been nice to maybe have a surrogate mom. I'm not a big fan of giving them, maybe we could make our own milk replacer out of whole foods, use some fermented raw goat milk, some fermented raw cow milk, something like that for supplementing the puppies. Or if we have a surrogate mom, that would be great. I don't like the chemical powder, mix them back up formulas. I don't think using the chemical formulas is a good idea for these guys. But if we could have supplemented the puppies so that maybe there weren't so many competing for the food, that would have made it a little bit easier for this guy. Certainly, I would not have vaccinated at 6 weeks old. The owner didn't have a say in that. That got done before she got the dog, and that happens very, very commonly. And I certainly would not have chosen Beneful as my puppy food. So,
what age should they have
Normally, we really like to have them stay with mama until 10 weeks, and I know breeders don't like to do that. However, I will say the high-end breeders, sometimes they don't let the puppies go to 12 to 16 weeks. Pet owners don't like to do that because they, go see the puppy. They want to take their puppy home. The kids want the puppy. They don't want to wait till the puppy's 3 months old or the kitten's 3 months old. But there's a lot that goes on in the interactions between the mama dog and the mama cat and the puppies and kittens. There's a lot that goes on in the interaction when you see the litter mates together. They're learning things. They're learning about society. They're learning how to interact with other animals. And very commonly, when we wean too early, we screw up their social interactions. And a lot of these animals, we have a lot of behavior problems down the line. So I will say little Edward, my grand kitten, he was weaned very early. Luckily, he didn't get vaccines till late, so yay. He's the most sociable critter in the world, but that's because my daughter takes him everywhere. And so his litter mates are Gwen and Brandon and the 2 dogs and the other cat. And he was at the gymnasium the other day and, chewing on the barbells. And he's, oh my gosh. But she takes him everywhere. He goes everywhere with them. And so he goes to the gym. He goes out to eat. I mean, Edward is a very sociable cat. He loves riding in the car. And I'll tell you what, if you start that early with a kitten, your kittens can be just as sociable, just as outgoing, and, ride in the car just like a calm dog would. And he's a cute little guy. Okay. All right, so that was our kidney Jing deficiency lesson for the day. Tomorrow morning we'll be on a plane on our way to LA. So hopefully during our filming tomorrow, Hugh can do some live from California. We'll be filming in the afternoon out there, so it'll be late here. Yeah, we'll have special edition of not breakfast and not with spaniels. Actually, I think we're going to have a couple of spaniels. Contacted a friend in California and said, I need some dogs for a film. I think we're going to have dogs. Forgot. Shotzi, the crazed schnauzer. He's very upset because Mom's in the barn.
Thanks for watching, and remember, you can find more information on Dr. Morgan's website at www.drjudymorgan.com.